Friends, today we're going to learn a prophecy of the last prophet. The last prophet of the Jewish people's name was Malachi. And we actually read the Haftorah of Malachi on Shabbat Hagadol. That is coming up very, very soon. The Haftarah of Shabbat Hagadol. Next one. Shabbat Hagadol, Bezrat Hashem. We're going to read Malachi. Why are we reading the words of Malachi on Shabbat Hagadol? First of all, what is Shabbat Hagadol? What happened on it? And what makes it so Gadol? Well, it's actually a miracle. There was an incredible nes that happened to the Jewish people on Shabbat Hagadol. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God told them to take a lamb and bring it into their homes 3 days before Pesach. And they brought that lamb into their homes. And they tied it to their beds, to their mitot. And the Mitzrayim were very, very upset about this because they worshipped the sheep in Egypt. And this lamb was going to become the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb. And they could do nothing about it. And this animal was eventually killed. And the blood of that animal sprinkled onto the mezuzot, the doorposts, and the mashkaf, and the lintel at the top of the doorpost. By the way, the mitzvah mezuzah, really this is one of the first references we see to the mitzvah of mezuzah, of your doorpost having a protective quality, which is actually one of the reasons there is a shin on a mezuzah. It is the first letter of one of God's names, which is Shah with Dai, Shin, Dalad Yud, which stands for Shomer, Dalatot, Yisrael. God is the protector of the doors of Israel. And it worked, Baruch Hashem. That's why Hashem Pasach jumped over the homes of the Jewish people, not to kill their firstborns, but to kill the firstborns of the Mitzrayim. That was the final Makkah, the final of the Eser Hamakot, the 10 plagues. And so that mitzvah comes, and that has the ability to protect us as well. Okay, fine. So now we have Shabbat HaGadol. Shabbat HaGadol was chosen as the day to celebrate the miracle that the Mitzrayim were not able to hurt the Jewish people at that time. That is what Shabbat HaGadol is, and it's become a custom nowadays. We don't really celebrate it per se, because it's Shabbat anyway, but the rabbi has there's a minhag, the rabbi gives a long darasha and reviews all the halachot, the pertinent halachot, pertinent laws that apply to the Pesach holiday. You get at least a few days to prepare for that moment. Okay, so this is the Haftarah. The Haftarah of Shabbat HaGadol is Malachi. Why? Why is the final prophecy of the final prophet, Malachi, going to be the Haftarah we're going to read? I'd like to give you a possible answer, and it is an amazing, God bless you, my brother from another mother, and even knows I take splendor. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam she'akol niyeh bivaro. Okay, now I'm awake. All right, Kinderlach, let's have a look at this together. Let's read the final words of the final prophet. We're going to assume, my dear friends, the final words of the final prophet are going to be very important for Achrit Yamim, the end of days. And they are. Let's have a look. He says, there's only 3 chapters, I think, of the entire Malachi. At the end of the 3rd chapter, so that's the last final words of the final Navi, says, Hinei, behold, Anochi sholech lachem, I am sending you et Eliah. Who's Eliah? I'm going to show you in a minute. Hanavi, the prophet. I'm going to send you a Navi whose name over here is Eliah. That is not his name. Yet he's referred to over here as Eliah. Lifnei, before Bo Yom Adonai, before the great day Hagadol Vahanora, and this awesome day. Who is Eliah? Who is this prophet? I don't remember learning about a prophet, Eliah. I was under the chuppah 2 weeks ago in Eretz Yisrael at the chuppah of a cousin of mine whose name was Eliah, but that was his name. This prophet is actually Eliyahu. The prophet, Elijah the prophet. We know, say the rabbis, based upon these verses and others, that before Mashiach comes, actually 3 days before Mashiach arrives on the scene to reveal that he is Mashiach, he has to be introduced by a prophet whose name is Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet. First name Eliyahu, last name prophet, middle name the. And he is going to come and he is going to announce the arrival of Mashiach, which means, by the way, just those words alone should blow your minds, that prophecy is going to return before Mashiach's arrival. Before Mashiach's arrival. Okay. Why is he called Eliyah? He's missing a vav. He's missing a vav. Eliyah with a head at the end is a vav missing. Actually, my dear friends, there are 5 times in Tanakh where the name Eliyahu is chaser vav, missing a vav. And not by coincidence. There are 5 occasions when somebody else in the Torah does have a vav added to their name. Do you know who has an extra vav added to their name 5 times in the Torah? Not Yoshua. Nope, not Aaron. It's actually Yaakov. Yaakov Avinu can be spelled chaser, lacking, or maleh, complete. And there are 5 occasions when Yaakov Avinu's name is spelled with a vav. My friends, there's been a thievery. There's been a stealing. The 5 vavs of Eliyahu were taken and added 5 times to the name of Yaakov to make his name from Yaakov to, well, Yaakov with the vav. It doesn't actually change the pronunciation. Why would that be? Why would that be? So this, my friends, is what I like to call the longest distance handshake in world history. The longest distance handshake in world history. Why do I say that? I'll tell you why. Because Yaakov Avinu was told that eventually his descendants would be redeemed and have a full geula. When was he promised this? When he was lying asleep on Har HaBayit, on Temple Mount, after fleeing from his twin brother Esav, and he had a dream, a chalom, with a ladder. And on the ladder there were angels going up, and there were angels going down. Olim v'yordim. Hashem promised him that eventually there would be a geula, a redemption, and all of his descendants would be redeemed from Galut and be redeemed to go back to Eretz Yisrael. By the way, his own life mirrored that, right? Because if you remember, he has to run away from Israel, running away from the threat, and he had to live outside of Israel. He had wives and children, and then he got to go back into Eretz Yisrael. So he really is the father of Galut, which is why, by the way, he had his revelation at nighttime, because Galut, exile, is like darkness nighttime. That's why the word Erev means nighttime. It also means Murav, mixed up. We're in Galut, we're mixed up, we don't know what's going on. And so his geula is going to be mirrored by our geula, our redemption, when we return to Israel with great success, financial, spiritual, and otherwise. Okay, so Yaakov Avinu knew that Eliyahu was going to be the one who's going to announce the arrival of Mashiach. So what did he do? He says, Eliyahu, I need you to promise me that you're going to come announce Mashiach and redeem the Jewish people. And now Eliyahu Navi said, okay, I promise you. He goes, it's not enough. I need you to swear to me that you're going to come and redeem my children, my boys and my sons and my daughters and my children, my grandchildren from Galut. And the other says, okay, how can I prove it to you? He goes, give me a handshake. Shake my hand. So at one end of history, you have Yaakov Avinu, who holds out his hand. At the other end of history, the other end of history, you have Eliyahu Navi, who holds out his hand as well. And these two hands meet somewhere in the middle, most likely at your Pesach Seder. How do you represent a hand? Well, a hand has got 5 fingers, or 4 fingers of the thumb. Which letter most resembles a finger? A vav. A vav. That's why Yaakov Avinu grabbed the 5 fingers of Eliyahu Navi, which represent the 5 vavs, which were taken from Eliyahu. So like over here, he is called Eliyah, because Yaakov stole one of his fingers. And he said, give me a handshake. Give me a promise that you are going to come and you are going to redeem my children. And there was a handshake. That, my friends, is the longest handshake. And that is why the 5 vavs were taken away from Eliyahu. And he's chaser, lacking a vav on 5 occasions. And Yaakov Avinu had 5 vavs added on to his name to represent this promise. That's why this particular nuvuah is mentioned over here on Shabbat HaGadol. One reason. Why is that? I'll tell you why. Because we know Pesach is the ultimate geula, the first redemption that our great-great-great-grandparents went through. And so we invoke this declaration of celebration of geula that the Jewish people went through at the time of Pesach, and we're like Eliyahu. Please come to my Pesach Seder. And he does. And we open the door. And you or your sons, whoever does it, will stand by that door when the door is open. And what's going to happen? We say, oh, please, Eliyahu, come. Shvoch matcha. Please bring your anger onto the, not chamotcha, your mother-in-law. That's another bracha. No, chamotcha, bring your anger onto those who hate us. Bring your anger onto those who want to destroy us. And please announce the arrival of Mashiach. We are still here. We're still here waiting for the final geula. We're still celebrating it 3,336 years later. That's because 2 4 4 8 to 5 7 8 4, right? That's 3336, okay? You can use your calculator later on to tell me. And that is why we're invoking and saying, Eliyahu, come on, it's enough already. Dayenu. Enough galut. Bring the geula. We're trying to coax him in. So Shabbat HaGadol, which is the Shabbat before Pesach, we mention this nevuah, this prophecy of Malachi, and we invite him to finally bring that handshake of Yaakov Avinu into reality.
And you have 5 geulot. Egypt was the one.
Very good, yeah.
Geula and 4 more, so 5 is 5.
Nathan, that's 5 redemptions and 5 cups of wine that go with it as well. Very, very nice. It's worth you being here, Nathan. God bless you, brother. Okay, one last piece I must share with you, because the prophecy does not end there. Does not end there. He then says the following, and this is actually the last pasuk. This pasuk is actually not so amazing. It's a little bit of a dig at the Jewish people at the end of days, because that's what he's referring to, which is why we actually repeat the penultimate, the one before last pasuk again of Hinei Anochi Sholech Lechem et Yaakov Navi. Before we repeat it, there is another pasuk which says the following: V'heishiv lev avot al banim. On my yeshiva that I learned in and I got smicha, these are the words that were written on the parochet, on the Aron Kodesh, because my yeshiva or sameach that I studied for many years actually did what's in this pasuk. Listen to these words and it's going to blow your minds. Remember, we're talking about Malachi, the last prophet. We're talking about the final chapter. We're talking about the last verse of the final prophet, which obviously means right before Mashiach comes, what he's about to say is going to happen, right? I mean, it makes sense. Listen to these amazing words. It's going to blow your mind. I'm going to return the hearts of the fathers onto their children, whatever that means. V'lev banim, and I'm going to return the hearts of the children al avotam, onto their parents. Pen, lest. There's 2 ways you can say maybe in Hebrew. One way is ulai, and the other is pen. Both mean maybe, but since they're different words, they must mean different things. So ulai means maybe something good's going to happen. Like ulai, I'm going to have a celebration. Ulai, I'm going to get married. Actually, that's not a lie. That's, a definite business for all of you. Ulai, ulai, ulai. But pen means maybe something bad, lo aleinu, is going to happen. So it's actually a warning that if you don't fix whatever this problem is, something bad may. Pen means may happen to you. I'm going to affect the earth in a negative way. Okay, what is the first part of the pasuk saying that it ends up over here, right at the end of the prophecy? And we'll finish with this because Rabbi Fai is going to take over in a minute. And it goes like this. Right before Mashiach comes, the commentators tell us, based upon this pasuk, there is going to be an upturning of education. How does it always work? It always worked that parents or grandparents taught their children Torah, mitzvot. My friends, that's the way it's always been. It's always been a downward trajectory of information. Just like water flows downwards, just like in Maim El Torah, water goes down. So too, Torah flows down to the generations. Generation after generation. Mother to children, father to children, always goes down. There's going to be, as we say in the Megillah, which is not a coincidence, v'nahafachu. There's going to be an upside down world right before Mashiach comes. A number of things are going to be upside down. But this one is mentioned by the prophet, which is Torah is now going to be taught by children to their parents. Now you may think, isn't that the way it's always been? No, that's not the way it's ever been, really. It's always parents to children. They used to educate their kids. And yet, right before Mashiach comes, says the prophet, we are going to see a world where children are going to be inspiring their parents with Torah and mitzvot. The parents who did not get an education Jewishly, who did not get to go to yeshiva, who had to go to public school, who were back in the old country trying to survive every day by making a living, going out and working the age of 14 or 15, right, like your grandparents, great-grandparents, who do not have the schut of a Jewish education, were able to take those few bits of money that they had, lump it together and be like, I didn't get it, I want my kids to get it. And these children, or these grandchildren of these parents and grandparents who had tremendous Mesirat Nefesh, spending a lot of money they never had, to keep Torah, to keep Shabbat, to bring a Jewish education to their children, are now coming home, and their kids are like, oh, so the rabbi told me halakha, and the parents are like, wow, I never learned this. Of course you didn't learn it. You didn't get a formal education. So now you're learning Torah from your children. That is not the way it's meant to be. It's heartbreaking. And yet, it's miraculous. It's mamash, a siman of Mashiach. It is biblical. Now, there's always been pockets of people who did this, but now we see it's ubiquitous. We see an entire generation where all these kids know more than their parents and grandparents. And it doesn't mean the kids or grandkids, which unfortunately they do many times, they're like, no, I know more Torah than you. It took a lot of challenges and exiles and Holocaust and difficulties and poverty to get to that point. And yet they are renewing their dedication to Torah mitzvot through their children. And I mentioned this story, if I mentioned this story before, Mechila, but I must mention it again because it fits in perfectly to everything I just said today. But I have a very good friend who's a successful therapist. If you need a good therapist, by the way, see me. I mean, he's chock-a-block full, this guy. He grew up with no Torah, no mitzvah whatsoever. Mamish gonished. His father was a very high-level, I think, orthopedic surgeon, extremely successful man. He wrote books on it. He was mamash. But chiloni, secular, legamre, totally. Except Pesach. No Yom Kippur, no Rosh Hashanah, gonished. Pesach, the family got together, sit around the table, bread, and a couple of slices of matzah. They would get out the Maxwell Haggadah, which I never understood, by the way. It's like, why are these coffee makers making whatever it was? Okay, it's not a British thing, but it's definitely an American thing. They would bring out the Maxwell Haggadah, probably not a bad Haggadah, by the way, as a sign point. Open it up, and they would read the Haggadah, and then obviously they would stop at a certain point. Which point would they stop at? Shulchan Orech. Right? That was the end of it. Dayenu. They would eat the meal, and then no Hallel, no third or fourth cup of wine, and they would go shlufi. Right? Because it was too late. He said, however, this father would stand up at one point. And he would go to the door, and he would open the front door, stand there for 10 seconds, not saying a word, and close the door. And my friend would go up to his friend and say, what are you doing? He goes, I'm welcoming Eliyahu Navi, because my grandfather told me that Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet, comes to every single Pesach Seder. And he's like, but I can't see him. Where is he? He's like, well, it's not him. It's his neshama, his soul. Why is he coming, Abba? Oh, he didn't say Abba. Why is he coming, Dad, Doctor? And his father was like, I don't know, but this is what we always do. We open the front door, we stand there, we close the front door, and that's the end of it. And my friend said to me many years later, when he was in college, he thought back to that 15-second event in his childhood. 15 seconds. And he would see his father standing there. His father passed away young. Opening the door, closing the door, be like, even my own father, for those 15 seconds a year, was willing to testify that there's more than just the physical realm. There's more. And he said that alone, those 15 seconds, my father said nothing, brought me back to Teshuvah. That's all it took. And eventually he became, and his siblings, Baruch Hashem, a lot more connected. I performed his sister's chuppah, Baruch Hashem, Kedat Moshe Yisrael. And he's got children now, Baruch Hashem. He's got grandchildren. And all of that, 15 seconds. I know we're all thinking we need to pump education to our kids and give them yeshiva. And that's all good stuff. But actually, it could be just a few silent moments. Silent moments where you don't say, but they're real. They're authentic. They're true. That could actually change your children's lives, your parents' lives, the guests at your Pesach Seder's lives, and those non-spoken moments can change everyone and everything. Hashem should allow us all to see Eliyahu Navi come very soon, B'ezrat Hashem. He's got a few more days to come and reveal Mashiach's arrival, and that handshake that Yaakov Avinu gave Eliyahu will come to fruition. Tizkol mitzvot. Rabbi Fai is going to speak. Azak v'amatz.